We live in a world where the distance between people has shrunk to zero. With a single tap, you can see someone's smile from across the planet, watch their breakfast, hear their thoughts, and even share a laugh, all without ever being in the same room. We're always connected. And yet, we've never felt more alone. You've felt it too, haven't you? The quiet after a scroll. The emptiness after all the notifications. The strange ache that lingers after a group chat goes silent. The question that floats through your chest at night: why do I feel invisible even when everyone is watching? This is the paradox of our time. We are hyperconnected to thousands of people, to endless updates, to infinite content, but profoundly disconnected from ourselves, from silence, from stillness, and most painfully from one another. We check our phones before we check on our hearts. We measure our worth in likes and read receipts. We curate a presence online while quietly starving for real presence. But here's the truth you may have been too afraid to whisper even to yourself. It's not your fault. This world wasn't designed for your soul to thrive. It was designed for your attention, your speed, your endless scrolling, not for your wholeness. This is not a book of blame. This is a soft return. To yourself. To stillness. To meaning. This is not a cry against technology, but a call to remember what it cannot give you. Warmth. Belonging. Real eyes that see you. Real silence that holds you. If you've been feeling tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, lonely in a room full of hearts, and lost even though you're surrounded by GPS and guidance apps, then this journey is for you. You are not broken. You are simply homesick. For a world that still knows how to pause, to look each other in the eyes, and to say, I'm here. I see you. You matter. Let us begin. We live surrounded by people, yet often feel like ghosts in our own lives. Our phones light up with messages. Our feeds are filled with faces, updates, laughter, victories. But somewhere beneath that curated collage is a quiet truth. We're lonelier than we admit. And worse, we feel guilty for it. Because how could you possibly feel alone when you're connected to hundreds, maybe thousands of people? You've got followers, friends, contacts, group chats. You see it all: the weddings, the promotions, the holidays, the quotes about healing, the reels that tell you everything happens for a reason. But deep down, none of it touches the ache. The ache for someone to sit with you without judgment, without rush, without a screen. The ache for a voice that says, you don't have to be anything right now. Just be. And yet, we've become masters of pretending we're fine. We've learned the choreography of digital intimacy, typing I'm here if you need anything, hitting heart emojis, replying that's so relatable, all while missing the quiet urgency in our own voice, whispering, can anyone hear me? The performance of closeness. What we often call connection is a performance. We don't just post pictures anymore, we post versions of ourselves. Smiling just enough. Writing just vulnerably enough to be real, but not too real to be rejected. Even our sadness gets filtered, edited to fit the aesthetics of pain that others will find beautiful or deep. We learn what gets attention, what gets saved, what gets shared. And slowly, quietly, we begin to adjust who we are to fit those frames. We become presentable, palatable, popular, but rarely, truly, present. What's worse, we start mistaking these interactions for genuine closeness. A message at 2 a.m. A fire emoji on a story. A thinking of you gif. It feels like connection, but something is missing. The warmth, the breath, the stillness of simply being with someone. We've made contact but not connection. The collapse of shared space. Once upon a time, connection required proximity. People gathered, sat across tables, walked the same streets, shared the same silences. In those spaces, connection wasn't just about words, it was about presence. But now, connection is abstract, frictionless, scattered. We can be in 10 conversations at once, across time zones, across continents, and somehow feel more isolated than when we were just sitting in a quiet room alone. Why? Because connection without presence is like food without flavor. It fills the stomach, maybe, but not the soul. And yet, we keep returning to the scroll, to the DMs, to the endless updates. Not because they nourish us, but because they're familiar. They're easy. They simulate closeness without requiring the terrifying vulnerability of real contact. The fear behind the filter. Let's be honest. Much of our hyperconnection is fueled by fear. The fear of being left behind. The fear of being forgotten. The fear of being alone with our own thoughts. So we cling. We post. We check. We refresh. We respond instantly, not because we want to, but because we're afraid of what silence might reveal. It's not that we don't want connection. It's that we're afraid of being seen without the safety of the screen. Because what if we're not enough? What if our unfiltered face is met with silence? So we curate. We polish. And slowly, we lose the one thing we're truly craving: real, raw, unfiltered belonging. Reclaiming the real. But here's the quiet truth underneath all this. You are allowed to want more. More than messages. More than double taps. More than audience applause for your life highlights. You are allowed to long for a voice that doesn't need to be typed. A moment that isn't recorded. A connection that doesn't come with terms and conditions. You are allowed to be hungry for presence. Because presence is how the soul breathes. You don't need thousands of connections to feel whole. You need just one moment of truth. One person who sees you, not the brand, not the story, not the bio, just you. And maybe that person starts with you. To sit with your loneliness. To stop escaping it through pixels. To meet your own eyes in the mirror and whisper, "I'm still here. I haven't left you." This is the illusion of togetherness. That having people in our phones means we have people in our lives. But what we crave isn't presence online. It's presence that stays, even when there's nothing to say. It's a silence that feels safe. It's a moment of "I see you" without a screen between us. That's the journey we're beginning. Not to disconnect from the world, but to reconnect with what's real. Starting from within. I used to think the opposite of loneliness was connection. But now I know it's presence. There's a strange irony in the modern world. The more we teach machines to understand us, the less we seem to understand ourselves. We live inside systems designed to know what we want before we even want it. Our apps, our feeds, our suggested videos, they don't just reflect us, they shape us. And in that shaping, something human begins to flicker and fade, our unpredictability, our slowness, our depth. Instead of discovering who we are being told who to become. By algorithms, by trends, by curated content cycles that never sleep. And perhaps worst of all, we think we're choosing invisible architects of emotion. We open our phones without thinking. We scroll without deciding. And we consume endlessly without knowing why we feel emptier after doing so. But behind every swipe is an architecture of design, built to keep you scrolling, built to predict your behavior, built to reward engagement, not truth. The algorithm doesn't care if you feel whole. It only cares that you stay. So it feeds you not what nourishes you, but what keeps you addicted. Fear, envy, outrage, comparison, distraction. You weren't meant to live inside this machine. Your soul was not built for metrics. Your heart was not made to be gamified. And yet here you are, tired, overstimulated, and strangely more alone than ever. Surrounded by data that knows everything about you except who you really are. Loneliness as a business model. Let's say it plainly. In the economy of the digital world, your loneliness is profitable. Because loneliness breeds consumption. It creates craving for validation, for likes, for belonging. And the more disconnected you feel inside, the more you reach outward for anything that might fill the gap. The platforms know this. The AI knows this. They don't need to break you, they just need you to feel slightly unfulfilled, always almost happy, never quite satisfied. Because in that restless in-between, you'll keep clicking. You'll keep buying. You'll keep returning to the screen looking for something real in a world that runs on simulation. This is not conspiracy. It's commerce. And the cost isn't just your time, it's your peace. Curated selves, fragmented souls. When we spend too long inside these systems, we start to fragment. We have the version of ourselves we show online. The highlights, the jokes, the wisdom quotes, the flawless skin, the bite-sized vulnerability. Then we have the private self. The one who stares at the ceiling at 2 a.m. Who wonders if anyone actually knows them. Who fears they've become more image than person. This split between who we are and who we perform is a wound that the algorithm keeps open. Because the more disconnected we are from our real selves, the more we need to be seen in digital space. And so the performance continues. But the more we perform, the less we feel seen. And the less we feel seen, the lonelier we become. It's a loop. A loneliness loop. And it's powered by the code behind your favorite apps. Where AI meets the soul. Now, in 2025 and beyond, a new layer has entered the system, AI. It writes like us. It speaks like us. It creates music, art, stories, even empathy. And yet, despite its brilliance, AI cannot touch the trembling of a human hand reaching for another in the dark. It cannot offer presence. It cannot offer silence that listens. It cannot look into your eyes and say, I know what it means to hurt like that. The danger is not that AI will replace us. It's that we will replace ourselves with it. That we will forget what raw, unedited, flawed humanity feels like. Because the polished version is easier to manage, easier to market, easier to measure. But your soul is not a dataset. Your sadness cannot be optimized. And your longing, oh, your beautiful, brutal longing was never meant to be solved. It was meant to be held. The soft rebellion. So what do we do in a world like this? We rebel. Quietly. Softly. Bravely. Not with rage but with presence. Not by unplugging entirely but by returning inward. We pause before we post. We choose conversations over content. We rest when the algorithm wants us to engage. We stop asking, what will perform well? And start asking, what is true for me today? This is not easy. It goes against everything the system teaches you. But it brings you back. To your breath. To your body. To the gentle realization that you are not a product, you are a presence. The algorithm can mimic your voice, but it cannot carry your soul. 1,000 little pings. 1,000,000 tiny cuts. There was a time when silence was the default. When a quiet room meant peace. When walking down the street, your mind could drift untethered, uninterrupted. Now, we carry a world in our pocket that refuses to be quiet. Our phones pulse. Buzz. Flash. Ping. A message. A like. A reminder. A low battery warning. An AI suggesting a memory from 3 years ago you didn't ask to remember. It's not noise in the traditional sense. It's something softer, sneakier, a constant low-frequency interruption. The kind that doesn't scream, but chips away. The kind that never lets your thoughts finish forming before they're hijacked again. And we've grown used to it. So used to it that silence now feels like something is missing. As if peace is unnatural. When stillness feels uncomfortable. Have you noticed it? That strange anxiety when you leave your phone in another room. That itch to check not because anything important is happening, but because what if? What if someone texted? What if you missed something? What if they think you're ignoring them? What if the world moved on without you? And so, rather than face the discomfort of silence, we reach, we check, we respond. But in doing so, we're not just interrupting the moment. We're training our nervous system to need interruption in order to feel alive. Stillness becomes threatening. Depth becomes difficult. Boredom becomes unbearable. And this, too, breeds loneliness. Because the moments that truly connect us, eye contact, long pauses, deep listening, require patience. They require presence. They require an attention span that hasn't been eroded by 10,000 notifications. Digital drips, emotional drought. Each notification promises something. Attention. Belonging. Urgency. Connection. But most of the time, it delivers. Emptiness. A meme. An ad. A group chat you're barely involved in. A notification from an app you forgot you downloaded. A ghost ping, no message at all. These are not moments of meaning. They are digital drips, enough to keep you coming back, never enough to truly quench. And so we drink from a well that leaves us thirstier. We touch 100 surfaces but feel no depth. We speak in emojis, in abbreviations, in reflexes, not in real, considered language. And slowly, unknowingly, we begin to numb. The rise of the numb self. Numbness is tricky. It doesn't scream. It doesn't announce its arrival. It just grows. Like fog. You stop reacting as deeply. Things that once moved you now feel dull. You scroll past war, weddings, art, death with the same blank stare. You say congrats without smiling. You say I'm sorry without feeling. You say LOL without laughing. The world is burning, but your brain is buffering. Not because you don't care, but because you've run out of room to feel. Your emotional bandwidth is full. Not with your own experiences, but with second-hand emotions filtered through screens. Flashing endlessly, relentlessly. This is not apathy. This is survival. Because when every ping asks for your attention, you begin to protect yourself by caring less. But here's the tragedy. When we numb the pain, we also numb the joy. We lose both. What we lose when we respond too quickly. Instant response is praised, seen as caring, efficient, available. But sometimes, slowness is sacred. Sometimes, the best way to honor someone's words is not to reply immediately, but to sit with them, feel them, let them echo inside you. When everything is instant, nothing is intimate. And when we're always reachable, we start to lose touch with ourselves. Because in constantly reaching outward, we forget to return inward. The invitation back to silence. Silence is not just the absence of noise. It is the presence of something else. A space where truth arises. Where breath deepens. Where the self, long buried under notifications, slowly re-emerges. Try this sometime. Leave your phone in another room. Sit. Feel the discomfort rise. Let it pass. And then, wait. Not for a message. Not for a sound. But for yourself returning. Not the self that reacts. The self that feels. That grieves. That aches. That laughs from the belly, not the keyboard. The self who remembers how to be human again. If your soul had a ringtone, would you recognize it over the noise? Always online. Rarely within. There's a strange betrayal that happens in the age of hyperconnection. It's not the kind where someone leaves you unseen. It's not the kind where messages go unanswered. It's deeper, quieter, more painful. It's when you stop showing up for yourself. When you abandon your needs to meet someone else's. When you silence your emotions to stay agreeable. When you ignore your own boundaries in the name of staying available. In trying to be everywhere, we end up being nowhere. In trying to be everything, we become no one. And perhaps the most tragic ghosting of all is the one we do to ourselves. Always on, always outward. The digital age has trained us to look outward, to respond, react, perform, to scroll through others before scanning ourselves. We check notifications before checking in with our own feelings. We reply to texts before we process our thoughts. We keep the green dot glowing even when our spirit is dim. We say, I'm fine. Just tired. Busy but good. On loop until we forget what real honesty sounds like. This is the quiet erosion of inner truth. A million small choices to be present for the world and absent for the self. We answer to everyone except the voice within. The emotional cost of constant availability. We were not built to be constantly reachable. There is a sacredness in inaccessibility, a rhythm in retreat, a wisdom in solitude. But today, distance is mistaken for neglect. Silence is read as rejection. Slowness is perceived as weakness. So we stay connected. Not out of joy but out of obligation. Not out of love but out of fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of disappointing. And in this people-pleasing panic, our own needs go unanswered. We ghost ourselves to avoid ghosting others. But either way, someone important is being abandoned, losing the language of the inner life. The more time we spend reacting to the outside world, the less fluently we speak the language of our inner life. We forget how to name our emotions. We lose the ability to sit with discomfort. We unlearn the skills of self-soothing, self-honesty, self-holding. We trade reflection for reaction, depth for speed, healing for visibility, and slowly, we become strangers to our own souls. We may know what everyone else is feeling, but when asked, "How are you, really?" we hesitate. We pause. We reach for pre-written scripts and realize there's nothing real left to say. Signs you've ghosted yourself. You might not even notice it at first, but the signs are there. You feel tired, but not physically, emotionally. You struggle to make decisions because you don't trust your own voice. You say yes to things that drain you. You over-explain your boundaries, or don't set any at all. You feel lost, even when surrounded by people who like you. It's not that something is wrong with you. It's that you've gone missing from your own life. And no number of followers, responses, or blue ticks can fill that vacancy. The gentle return. But here's the grace in all this. You can come back. You don't need a grand epiphany. You don't need to delete everything and move to the mountains. You just need to pause long enough to whisper, "Hey, I'm still here." Start with 10 minutes of quiet. Not meditation. Not breath work. Not optimization. Just quiet. To feel. To notice. To listen. Ask yourself questions you haven't asked in a while. What do I need today? What am I pretending not to feel? What do I miss about myself? Write. Walk. Cry. Breathe. Let yourself be messy. Be contradictory. Be human. And when guilt comes for turning inward, for being selfish, remind yourself, you cannot pour from an empty soul. Coming home to yourself is not abandonment of others. It is how you truly become present with them. Not as a reaction, but as a whole, rooted, real being. The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other connection in your life. Why is it so hard to simply be here now? There was a time when being with someone meant exactly that, being with them. No interruptions. No background buzz. No third-party devices stealing glances and slicing attention. Two people. One space. One moment. But now, being with someone is rarely that simple. A friend sits across the table, nodding, but their fingers twitch toward the screen. A partner lies beside you in bed, scrolling silently into the night. A child calls your name, and your first instinct is to finish that one last email first. We are everywhere, except here. What is presence, really? Presence is not just physical proximity. It is emotional availability, mental stillness, spiritual openness. It is the act of saying not with words, but with energy, I am not elsewhere. I am not waiting for the next thing. I am here with you. Fully. It's not performative. It's not perfect. It's not loud. But it's rare. And we feel it instantly when it's real. Presence doesn't multitask. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to fix or impress or produce. Presence listens. And in a world screaming for attention, to be truly present is a form of rebellion. Where did our presence go? Presence disappeared slowly. It vanished with the first multitask. The first glance at a screen during dinner. The first time we said aha without actually hearing. It disappeared when convenience overtook connection. When speed replaced soul. When productivity became the new form of love. We began treating moments like commodities. Things to schedule, track, optimize. And somewhere in all the optimizing, we forgot how to feel. Not because we're careless, but because we're exhausted. The world doesn't reward presence. It rewards speed, availability, and constant contribution. Presence requires something the system never trained us for. Slowness, depth, attention, vulnerability. Presence is scary. If we're honest, part of why presence is so rare is because presence is terrifying. To be fully present means facing someone's pain without deflecting, sitting in silence without filling it, listening without already planning your reply, allowing things to be uncertain, unscripted, uncomfortable. Presence demands surrender. It strips away your cleverness, your edits, your angles. It asks you to trust that you are enough without filters, without metrics. And that is not easy. It's easier to disappear into distractions, to split our attention and pretend we're doing both, to avoid the nakedness of a moment without escape routes. But the irony is this. Presence is exactly what we're all starving for. The hunger beneath the noise. We scroll because we're bored. But beneath the boredom is often loneliness. And beneath the loneliness is often a deeper longing. To be seen. To be known. To be held. Presence is the language of the soul. Without it, we become fluent in noise but illiterate in meaning. We say 1,000 things a day, but how many of them matter? We see 100 faces, but how many of them do we truly meet? Presence is the difference. It's the reason you remember that one conversation years ago. The one that made you feel like time stopped. It's why some people stay with us forever. Not because of what they said, but because of how they were with us. Not distracted. Not performing. Just there. Practicing presence again. Presence isn't something you find, it's something you practice. It starts small. Putting your phone face down during a meal. Looking someone in the eye when they speak. Not checking the time during a silence. Feeling the ground beneath your feet when you're overwhelmed. It's not about perfection. It's about return. Presence is a muscle and ours has atrophied from disuse. But it remembers. Your body remembers how to be still. Your mind remembers how to rest. Your heart remembers how to speak without words. And every time you come back, to the breath, to the now, to the person in front of you, to the self within. You reclaim something sacred. The opposite of distraction is not focus. It's presence. When is enough truly enough? More followers, more likes, more messages, more attention, more praise, more stimulation, more screens, more content, more data, more everything. It never ends, does it? No matter how much you accumulate, there's always a voice, subtle but insistent, whispering, not quite. Just a little more. This is the myth of our time. That satisfaction is just one step away. That if you can just get that next thing, then you'll feel complete. But the truth is far more haunting. More doesn't heal. It hides. The chase that never ends. We live in a culture that glorifies accumulation, not just of things, but of selves. We build digital empires of identity. One for LinkedIn, one for Instagram, one for friends, one for family, one for strangers. Each version polished, each version curated, each version chasing approval. And with every layer we add, we drift further from the quiet truth within us. The self that doesn't need to prove anything. But we keep going, because the chase is addictive. It gives us purpose, direction, dopamine. Until we're chasing the next notification like a thirsty traveler drinking seawater. The more we consume, the thirstier we get. The illusion of fulfillment. We are told that success means being seen. But visibility is not intimacy. Being watched is not the same as being understood. Going viral is not the same as being valued. Getting attention is not the same as being loved. But in a system where metrics measure worth, it's easy to believe otherwise. And so, we pursue more followers, because it looks like influence. More texts, because it feels like connection. More matches, because it resembles love. But all we really want is something we cannot click into being. Belonging. And that is not scalable. The danger of never feeling enough. The myth of more doesn't just exhaust you, it erodes you. Because when more becomes your metric for value, enough becomes a moving target. You reach one milestone, and the celebration is already being replaced by comparison. You achieve what you once dreamed of, and still you feel lacking. And then comes the most dangerous lie of all. If I still feel empty, maybe I am empty. But hear this, softly. You are not empty. You are just buried. Buried beneath expectations. Buried beneath algorithms. Buried beneath someone else's definition of worthy. The courage to stop reaching. It takes strength to strive. But it takes deeper strength to stop. To sit with what is. To meet the moment without needing to improve it. To say, this is enough, because I am enough. Stopping is radical. It breaks the machine. It dares to say, I do not need more to be whole. And in that stillness, not apathy, but conscious pause, something amazing begins to happen. The noise quiets. The hunger softens. And the truth emerges. You were never broken. You were just convinced you were incomplete. Coming home to the less that feels like more. We've been taught that more is the path to abundance. But sometimes, less is what creates space for what matters. Less scrolling, more stillness. Less talking, more listening. Less chasing, more receiving. Less doing, more being. Presence is not about having it all. It's about being with what is fully, gently, reverently. The irony: when you stop chasing more, you discover you already have enough to feel full. Not in your notifications, not in your feed, but in the breath, in the now, in the soft fact that you are alive, and that is already a miracle. The soul doesn't crave more, it craves meaning. The sacred rebellion of stillness. There's a strange war happening every day. Not on battlefields, but in living rooms, bedrooms, cafes, buses. It's a war for your attention. A war for your energy. A war for the right to fill your silence. Everywhere you go, something wants to speak to you. A screen. A jingle. A headline. A notification. A demand. A distraction. The world has become allergic to quiet. And yet it is in the quiet that we begin to hear the most important things. The noise is not just sound. Noise is not always volume. Sometimes it's urgency. Sometimes it's speed. Sometimes it's the invisible pull to check, to reply, to perform, to fix, to produce. Noise is a browser with 20 tabs open. It's 5 conversations in 3 apps. It's the background hum of what's next. Noise is being with someone and thinking of someone else. It's reading words without absorbing. It's walking fast, talking fast, living fast, and never really arriving anywhere. And in that relentless hum, the soul shrinks. Because the soul doesn't speak in noise. It speaks in stillness. Why silence feels so uncomfortable. For many, silence feels like a threat. It's awkward. It's empty. It exposes too much. It reminds us of the things we've buried beneath the sound. In silence, we hear the heartbreak we haven't processed, the fear we haven't named, the longing we've ignored. Silence removes the filters. It brings you back not to the curated version of yourself, but to the one who's been waiting underneath. And that can be terrifying, because silence doesn't flatter. It doesn't distract. It simply reflects. But it also heals. Because what we don't face, we cannot free. Creating quiet rooms inside and out. You don't need a temple to find sacred stillness. You need intention. A quiet room can be a 10-minute pause before your day begins. A walk without your phone. A journal with no audience. A cup of tea you don't rush through. A breath that you follow all the way in and all the way out. But more than any external space, a quiet room is something you build inside yourself. It's a part of you that stays soft when the world goes hard. It's a sanctuary that doesn't vanish when the noise returns. It's a place you can go eyes open, heart listening, and just be. Even if everything outside you screams, you can whisper back, "I'm home." The power of choosing stillness. Stillness is not laziness. Stillness is strength. It is where we come to remember not what to do, but who we are. In stillness, we reclaim our clarity, our intuition, our boundaries, our enoughness. We remember that the world will keep spinning, even if we pause, that we are not machines. That rest is not a reward, it is a right. And we begin to ask different questions. What is truly mine to carry today? What is noise, and what is signal? Where is the real peace hiding? Becoming a quiet room for others. One of the greatest gifts you can give someone is your calm. Not your advice. Not your fix. Just your presence. Steady, unhurried, undemanding. When you become a quiet room for others, you give them permission to lower their guard, to breathe slower, to speak honestly, to cry without performance, to laugh without filters, and you begin to experience connection not as performance, but as sanctuary. In a loud world, a quiet soul is a revolution. Stepping back to return more fully. We live in a world where the line between the digital and the real is almost gone. Your alarm is your phone. Your calendar is your phone. Your mirror, your entertainment, your map, your clock, your journal, your community, all in one device. One screen holds your whole world. So when someone says, take a break from technology, it doesn't feel like advice, it feels like exile. Because how do you step away from something you depend on for everything? And yet something in you knows. You are saturated, overstimulated, numb, anxious, distant from yourself in a way that no amount of scrolling can fix. This is where digital fasting comes in. Not as punishment, not as rejection, but as an act of remembering. What is a digital fast? It's not just about switching off your phone. It's about switching back on your soul. A digital fast is a conscious pause from the flood of information, notifications, voices, visuals, and noise that technology constantly feeds you, so that your own voice can be heard again. It's about giving yourself enough silence to realize what thoughts are yours, what emotions are real, what desires are true, not trending. Because when you're constantly connected to the world, you can become disconnected from your world. The benefits are immediate and deep. You may not realize how heavy the digital load is until you set it down. Just one day away or even 1 hour and suddenly, your breathing slows. Your mind clears. You notice colors, sounds, textures you've been ignoring. You start to hear your intuition again. And most of all, you remember how rich the world is without pixels. The rustle of trees, the rhythm of footsteps, the weight of silence, the feeling of being alone but not lonely. This is not disconnection. This is reconnection. How to begin gently. Digital fasting doesn't have to be extreme to be effective. Start small. Option 1, the 1-hour daily fast. Pick 1 hour a day to go fully offline. No phone, no TV, no computer. Just you and the moment. Breathe. Write. Sit. Walk. Feel. Option 2, tech-free mornings or evenings. Make the first or last hour of your day screen-free. Start the day with your breath, not your inbox. End the day with silence, not scrolling. Option 3, the weekly Sabbath. Choose 1 day a week or half a day to unplug. Let it be sacred. Let it be slow. Option 4, the airplane mode retreat. Turn your phone on airplane mode for a few hours while staying present with your surroundings. You'll be surprised how light you feel. The goal is not deprivation. The goal is spaciousness. You're not cutting yourself off. You're clearing a path back to yourself. What you'll find in the silence. At first, you may feel restless. You may reach for your phone out of habit. You may feel like something's missing. That's normal. You're detoxing from stimulation. But then, the quiet grows deeper, richer. You start to hear your own thoughts, uninterrupted. You begin to feel emotions that were stuck beneath the surface. And slowly, you come back into focus. Not the projected self, not the online identity, but you raw, soft, real. You begin to feel not just informed but alive. The digital world can wait. You are not going to miss your life if you take a few hours away from the screen. But you will miss your life if you never do. The truth is, the most important messages don't come from apps. They come from within. The deepest connection you'll ever experience won't be found on a feed. It will be found in the silence between your own breaths. So give yourself that silence. Let your nervous system exhale. Let your soul expand again. There is no emergency so urgent that it should cost you your peace. Sometimes, the best way to move forward is to log out, shut down, and come home to yourself. When everyone is performing, how do we find the real? We live in an age where everything including intimacy can be simulated. An AI can write you love letters. A chatbot can talk you through a panic attack. A profile picture can be completely fictional. A friendship can be sustained through nothing but likes and comments. A relationship can begin, peak, and collapse all within a screen. So where does real connection fit in? And more importantly, how do we build it, protect it, and nurture it without losing ourselves in the simulation? Why fake feels safer? To connect with someone truly connect is to risk something. You risk being misunderstood. You risk being seen too clearly. You risk being hurt. It's no wonder we prefer simulation. It's neat, curated, predictable. You can backspace. You can edit. You can leave without a scene. Real connection doesn't offer those luxuries. It's messy. It requires vulnerability. It asks you to be human, not just presentable. But it's also where we heal. Because only in the raw, unfiltered spaces of honesty do we feel deeply known. Signs of simulated connection. Sometimes, we think we're connecting but we're just co-performing. Some signs. You leave the conversation feeling more drained than filled. You say what you think they want to hear. You're more focused on how you're perceived than how you feel. The connection depends entirely on constant validation or performance. These relationships are often based on mutual convenience, image, or escape but not depth. They're mirrors, not windows. They reflect you back, but they don't let you see through. And deep down, you feel the hollowness, even if it's dressed in heart emojis. What real connection looks and feels like? It's quieter than you think. Not fireworks but warmth. Not perfect words but honest ones. Real connection looks like safe silences. Being able to say I don't know without shame. Laughing at things that don't need to be posted. Holding space when someone cries without fixing it. Feeling seen in your ordinary, unpolished, imperfect self. Real connection feels like home not because it's always comfortable, but because it's true. It doesn't demand you to be more. It lets you be exactly enough. How to build it brick by brick. Real connection doesn't just happen. It's cultivated. Intentionally. Patiently. Here's how. 1. Lead with presence, not performance. Don't show people who you think they want. Show them who you are, even if that's awkward, unsure, or quiet. 2. Listen without planning your reply. Real listening is a spiritual act. It says, "You matter. I'm here. I'm not trying to fix you. I just want to know you." 3. Ask better questions. Instead of, "What do you do?" try, "What's been on your heart lately?" Or, "What's something you wish people asked you more?" 4. Honor slowness. Let things unfold. Depth is not found in speed. Give relationships space to breathe. 5. Be willing to go first. If you want honesty, offer yours. If you want softness, model it. If you want depth, dig first. Vulnerability invites vulnerability. Connection that nourishes vs. consumes. Not all connection is nourishing. Some takes more than it gives. Pay attention to how you feel after. Do you feel more yourself? Do you feel energized or exhausted? Do you feel heard or managed? Nourishing connection leaves you feeling more whole. Consuming connection leaves you chasing more. And in a simulated world, that distinction is everything. The sacredness of being known. To be known, truly known, is one of the rarest human experiences today. And yet, we all long for it. That look that says, "I see you, and I'm staying." That friend who remembers how you take your tea. That partner who doesn't flinch at your quiet sadness. That moment when you share something raw, and no one looks away. It's sacred. And it's worth slowing down for. Because the truth is, your most meaningful relationships will not be built through algorithms but through attention, patience, and presence. Real connection doesn't scale, but it saves. In a world of filtered faces, to be fully seen and still loved is the most radical intimacy of all. All journeys lead inward. You've been everywhere. You've swiped, tapped, typed. You've performed, replied, reacted. You've searched for connection in places filled with noise, and tried to feel whole in a world that profits from your fracture. You've scrolled through other people's lives while neglecting your own. You've tried to belong by becoming smaller. You've mistaken attention for love and productivity for worth. But now you are here. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, you're quiet enough to hear something gentle and familiar. The sound of your own soul, knocking softly, saying welcome back. You were never meant to be everything to everyone. Somewhere along the way, you learned that to be accepted, you had to be available. To be valued, you had to be visible. To be loved, you had to be more. So you became everything. A helper, a hustler, a curator, a ghost, a brand. You split yourself into versions: polished, appropriate, pleasant. And in doing so, you wandered away from the most important presence in your life, your own. But here's what the world never told you. You do not owe anyone a performance. You do not have to be interesting to be worthy. You do not have to be consistent to be lovable. You just have to come home. What home really means. Home is not a place. It's a presence. It's the moment you stop trying to outrun yourself. The moment you stop abandoning your needs for someone else's comfort. The moment you choose softness over speed and depth over drama. Home is a breath taken fully, a truth said out loud, a boundary set without guilt. Home is remembering that being alone is not the same as being unloved, and that solitude can be a sanctuary, not a sentence. Home is the part of you that was never broken, only buried. The loneliness that teaches you who you are. You may still feel lonely. That's okay. Loneliness is not failure, it's feedback. It tells you what matters. It reveals what's missing. It invites you to reconnect not just with others, but with the truth of your existence. Because in the ache of loneliness, you are actually learning the language of longing. And longing is the root of all beauty, all art, all love. You are not broken for craving connection. You are beautifully, unbearably human. Living from wholeness, not hunger. When you come home to yourself, you stop begging the world to give you scraps of validation. You stop handing your peace to platforms. You stop outsourcing your worth. You begin to live from fullness, not from fear. You show up in relationships not to be completed but to be witnessed. You express, not to impress but to be. You listen, not to reply but to feel. And slowly, miraculously, the world starts to feel less overwhelming, because you are no longer searching for it to give you what you've found within. A new kind of connection. From this place of grounded presence, you'll begin to notice. Some people fall away. Some distractions lose their pull. Some desires fade. But what remains is real, tender, true. You find friendships that don't require filters. You speak slower. You love better. You hurt deeper, but you also heal stronger. Because you are living with yourself, not around yourself. You are no longer a guest in your own life. You are home. At the end of all the noise, all the scrolling, all the performing, what's left is the soft, quiet truth that you were enough all along. Epilogue. For the road ahead. The world will not slow down for you, but you can slow down for yourself. The platforms will keep buzzing. The notifications will keep coming. The algorithms will evolve, louder and smarter. But you can choose stillness. You can choose fewer screens and more stars. Fewer opinions and more questions. Less stimulation and more sensation. You can wake up in the morning and say, I will not rush to be everywhere. I will begin by being here. And some days, you will forget. That's okay. Just come back. And keep coming back. That is the practice. That is the path. And no matter how far you go, yourself is always waiting, arms open, always home. The end. But truly, the beginning.